Hi, everyone. This is Dr. Tracey Jones. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Tremendous Leadership Podcast, where we talk about the functions of followership. Have you ever said to yourself, I don't know how to do that? We live in a world where there is so much information, but so little application. And your mind is a muscle, just like any other muscle in your body. And the more you use it, the stronger it's going to become. So today, on the fifth function of followership, this one is titled Exposure to Experience, and why you should, as a leader and follower, don't worry so much about getting it right or getting it wrong. Worry most of all about getting experience.
You're listening to Tremendous Leadership with Dr. Tracey Jones.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. This is Dr. Tracey Jones. Thanks so much for tuning in to our Tremendous Leadership series of podcasts titled The Functions of Followership. And as I said in the intro, today's function of followership is titled Exposure to Experience. And what I've been doing in this series of 7 webinars is we take one of the laws of leadership from my father's book, Life is Tremendous, and then we take one of the 7 functions of followership from my book, A Message to Millennials, and we overlay them together because, as you've heard me say a million times before, leadership and followership are 2 sides of the same coin. So in the book, Life is Tremendous, my father has this wonderful, wonderful mental hook. And he says that when we are born, we all are born with an empty key ring by our side, attached to our side. And every experience that we gain in life, good, bad, or ugly, gives us more keys through which to go through future doors. So as a result, the more experiences you have, the more doors you are able to open as the years go by. This is why leaders get more confident in their abilities, because they've unlocked different doors by gaining different experiences. And don't worry about if you say, Tracey, all I've had is bad experiences. That's okay. They give you double the amount of keys. So one of the things that we talk about in this exposure to experience is that really life, until you take your last breath, you should be going out there and grabbing everything that you can, trying every new thing that you can. And you can never coast. Exposure to experience means that even if you're retired or even if you're out of your prime working years, you still should be exposing yourself to different experiences. And we see people doing wonderful things like that. My father used to say that some of the most dynamic people that he had ever encountered were in their 80s. And now we're living longer. So never stop trying to expose yourself to new experiences, volunteerism, learning a new skill, all these different things. Because my father always believed that success is not a reward to sit back and be enjoyed, but it is a trust to be administered. So continuing to up the bar in your life and gain new things and learn new things is absolutely required. And my father lived this up until his very last breath. I had the blessing of being with him when he departed this earth and made his transition to heaven. And I would come back from St. Louis every weekend where I was living at the time and spend time with him. And until the last week when he was really getting ready to emigrate into heaven, I got to stay by his side. And I watched him. And he, up until that last breath, he still called people. He was still reaching out to people. He was still calling them and recommending books. He was still having my mom and my siblings read to him. He was still seeing guests and having them come and share things and imparting wisdom to them and talking about different things that he had learned. Days before he passed, okay? So he, up until the very last breath, he wanted to finish strong. And that means we never sit back and think we know it all. I'm never going to sit back. My gosh, you guys know I just got my PhD and I'm going to be 57 next month, okay? So I could have sat back and said, oh, my brain doesn't work anymore. No, the more you grow your mind, the more stronger it becomes. So you want to remember that. So everything that you do, everything in life gives you experience. And I hope that those of you listening have really used the past 3 months where we have been in this quarantine with the pandemic and learned some new things. One of the things I learned to do was podcast. Leah, my co-leader, and I had talked about it for many, many months. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. We're never going to get to it. There's not enough time. And boom, this happened. All right. So what do? We took this opportunity to expose ourselves to doing new things. And I'm sure we'll get better as time goes on, but you don't know until you expose yourself to learning how to do this. So one of the things about this law of leadership and function of followership is that there are no shortcuts to experience. And so I tell young emerging leaders who all of a sudden want to be at the top, I'm like, guys, you got to hone your chops. Okay. You got to get seasoning. And there are no shortcuts to this. A lot of people think, well, but I'm gifted, or I know more, or I'm better than how older people used to do it. No shortcuts. And I can remember in the military, there were a certain number of years we had to be a lieutenant, 4 years as a second lieutenant and 2 years as a first lieutenant, and a certain amount of years that we had to be a captain, typically 7 years, a certain amount of time. And so what that meant is even if Pat was your father, you still had to go through a certain amount of years and experiences before you could get promoted to the next level. So there are no shortcuts for this. So for our followers out there that are chomping at the bit, experience is the greatest thing that you can get to identify yourself as a future leader. And one of my favorite jokes that my father always told me is this young up and coming emergent leader asked their CEO how they got so successful, because he wanted to be successful. He wanted to be a leader. And the CEO looked at the young man and said, good judgment. And the young man said, okay, in a hurry. Well, how do I get a good judgment? And the CEO said, experience. And the young man said, okay, well, how do I get experience? And the CEO said, poor judgment. Okay. Now that you may have heard that before. That's a wonderful illustration that it just takes time to get exposure to experience. And you can tell when you meet leaders that have really been in the fires and have been exposed to different things, because you can tell by their seasoning, by their wisdom, by their empathy, by their war stories. I mean, when I was in the military, the more war stories, the better, because this is what you've been through. This is where you fought to live another day. And I always say you will never meet a strong person with a weak or an easy past. So go out there and try stuff. Life is a contact sport, and you're going to fall, and you're going to get your nose bloody, and you're going to get your butt kicked. And that's just all part of it. Okay. Because the more you get of this, the more experience you get, and you get stronger. And all of a sudden, like I said, you get more keys with which to unlock things in the future, doors that happen. And so when this pandemic hit, and you've heard in some of the crisis leadership podcasts, people that have been through crisis before, yeah, this was tough, but they've been through worse. So the beauty of having more experiences, when the unknown happens, you don't get as freaked out. Okay. You're like, all right, I haven't been through exactly this trial or this experience, but I've been through stuff close enough to it. And I have pretty much some skills, some contacts, some connections, some things I've learned so that I can be ready and open this door. So my father used to tell me growing up that I needed to earn my stripes. And this is before I even went into the military. This is when I was like a little girl, and I'm like, okay, Dad, earn my stripes. And what he meant was I can't achieve success just by being born to a successful person. Okay. Just because you're successful, it doesn't mean that your kids are going to be successful. And the favorite analogy is just because you may have been born in a garage, it doesn't make you an automobile. Just because you were born in church, it doesn't make you a Christian. You have to earn this. And so my father always let me know, Tracey, you got to get out there. And I would listen to these wonderful men speak, men and women, Zig Ziglar, Norman Vincent Peale, about these incredible stories and things they've been through. And I'm like, the reason they were so real with the audience is because they had lived it. They weren't consultants and they weren't trainers. I mean, nothing against that, but they had lived this. And I want to hear right from this horse's mouth how they lived to fight another day. So my father always told me, Tracey, you have to earn your own stripes. So I took that quite literally, and I went off into the military because I knew my father was so successful in the business world and in the world of insurance and in sales. And I thought, you know what? I have to go prove my own way of my own ability. And the best way I found to do that was in the military, because even though some of them had heard of my dad, he was there. I had to come in and I literally had to earn my own stripes, or in the case of being an officer, you earn your bars. So one of the things my father always told me is a lot of people, when they would get faced with experiences that they didn't like, they would or like they didn't know what to do, they'd quit. And my dad would always say, quit? You can't quit. You ain't done nothing yet. Don't quit when you're faced with something you don't know how to do, because you're going to miss out on gaining experience and figuring out a new thing. So in the personality profiles, the big five, one of the traits is O, what stands for openness to new experiences. And when you are open to new experiences, that is a wonderful trait, because you're not risk averse and you're willing to take on things that even though you don't know how to do, because you're going to be able to figure them out, or you're going to be able to find the resources to help you. And what this is called is cognitive efficacy. And it means you have this hunger to constantly be learning new ways of doing things. One of the worst jobs you can put me in is one where I do the same task every day over and and over and over for the rest of my life. For some people, that is really fulfilling to them. But for me, I need to constantly be finding out new ways of doing things. So you want to be in a continuous learning mode your entire life. Even if you're retired, even if you're sitting back and have more money than you know what to do with, find new things to do. Find new ways to invest in yourself. Find new ways to be of benefit to other people. So I hope in this Exposure to Experience webinar that you have learned all about the key to being a great leader as a follower is to gain as many experiences as possible. Because when an organization encounters a downturn, the more experiences you have, the more valuable you are to that organization. You don't want to be a one-trick pony, okay? Because sometimes times are plentiful, which is great. Other times they get really lean where organizations have to cut and say to people, hey, can you pick up this additional work? And the more experiences you have, the more value to the organization you're going to be. And when you get, as a follower, to get a really seasoned experience bag, that's when you get to step into leadership. But you can't do it until then because you're going to need to rely on your actual experiences, your intuition, your gravitas, your intuition, your gut, all that stuff as a leader. And that is really honed through exposure to experience. So just remember, the more you know, the more you grow, and have a healthy relationship with failure and become less risk-averse, and go ahead. And even if it's not your dream job or you're not sure that you can do this, at least try it, because you're going to get exposure. You're going to get additional keys for your key ring. So you want to go out, you want to watch your leaders, followers that are looking to step up. You want to watch your leaders. You want to shadow them. Listen in on them. Ask your boss, hey, can I sit in on this? Can I be a member of this board? Can I augment this class? Can I listen to this? And listen and learn, because you never know when the door is going to open of opportunity and somebody's going to maybe tap you into a leadership role. I mean, look at what happened right now with all the changes we're going through in our businesses. And so don't wait until you think the time is right. Always look to be growing your experience bag. Always be looking to up your training, your skills, do certifications, because the more key rings you have, the more knowledgeable you are, the more valuable you are to an organization. So thank you so much for listening to the fifth function of followership, exposure to experience. Again, I can't emphasize enough for any leader or follower, the greatest thing that you can do is to get experience, no matter what, because it just makes you so much richer, so much more in demand as an individual, and just so much greater to the organization and to yourself. It also gives you a tremendous amount of peace, because you know if the rug does get pulled out from underneath you, you're going to land on your feet and not on your rump. So thank you for listening. Please be sure and leave us a comment. We answer all our comments. And be sure and leave us a rating wherever you listen to us, on Spotify, Stitcher, Anchor, wherever, YouTube. And also be sure and subscribe to our e-blast at TremendousLeadership.com. You can also subscribe to our 14 days of free ebooks, where you can really build your mental muscle and get exposure to the experiences of the greats that you read about in our Tremendous books. Also, be sure and reach out to me directly at TremendousLeadership.com if you'd like to work with me individually one-on-one on how to develop more resilient followers in your team and your organization. Check us out, TremendousLeadership.com, and you can pick up a copy of A Message to Millennials 2 and Life is Tremendous, where you can read all about the 7 laws of leadership and the 7 functions of followership. Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to Tremendous Leadership with Dr. Tracey Jones. Find out more about Dr. Jones at www.tremendousleadership.com. If you've been ignited by something you heard in this episode, let us know by leaving a review for Tremendous Leadership wherever you listen to podcasts, or by sending us a message through www.tremendousleadership.com.